Hey everyone, welcome back to another Anthropologie dupe. I've had this menagerie deer chair from Anthro pinned for a while now, so when I found this chair at the thrift store for only $6, I took it as a sign that I had to make the dupe. I'm going to be using a similar faux carved wood technique to the one I used in my dresser dupe video. I will link it below if you haven't seen it. And I will be answering some of the questions I got about that project and going a bit more in depth about the epoxy clay that I used. After I made the dresser, I reached out to Aves, the makers of Epoxy Sculpt, to see if they would be interested in partnering with me on another furniture flip. They were generous enough to send me the Epoxy Sculpt I will be using in this video, and we will be giving away a 4-pound kit to one of you over on Instagram, so follow me at happyhomemama.diy for the details. More about the Epoxy Sculpt later. For now, let's prep this chair. I started sanding it by hand because I wasn't sure how well my orbital sander would work on the curved areas, but I switched to the orbital and it worked great. I ended up removing this middle piece from the back of the chair after realizing I didn't need it. Next, I made a template for the deer's head on the back of the chair. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I'm going to show you how I do it using MS Paint. I crop the image to the area I want to print out, then use the Page Setup tool under the Print tab. I make sure the image is set to print at the correct orientation, in this case portrait, and then I scale it to the size I need. My chair back is about 2 regular size sheets of printer paper wide and 3 long, so I adjust the scaling to fit 2 by 3 pages, and then check it using the Print Preview tool. As you can see here, the image is currently too short, so I adjust the crop and repeat the process until it prints to the correct size. Once the template is printed, cut out, and taped together, I tape it to the back of the chair to make sure my sizing was correct, and then traced it out onto a piece of cardboard. The cardboard doesn't need to be anything fancy, it's just going to be used as an armature to support the epoxy clay until it cures. I cut the deer and antlers out completely, but in hindsight it would have been easier to leave it like this and sculpt on the solid piece of flat cardboard. Once the cardboard deer was cut out, I hot glued it in place to the chair. Okay, I know this looks crazy, but as they say, trust the process. Now let the sculpting begin. I've been using Epoxy Sculpt for years on various projects, but it is especially amazing for furniture because it sticks to pretty much any surface and is incredibly durable after it dries. To use it, you mix equal parts of A and B. It has a work time of about 2 to 3 hours and can be sculpted by hand and used in molds. I will be using both of these techniques for this project. For this project, I decided to try out the brown Epoxy Sculpt. It's my first time using the tinted version, and although it's the same instructions and application as the non-colored version, I did notice the tinted clay is slightly softer than the original. This was only an issue when trying to pull the clay from a mold after it was freshly mixed, and to solve the problem, I let my mixed clay sit for about 20 minutes before using it in the molds. For the deer head and antlers, I applied a thin layer of clay over my cardboard armature and etched in the details with some sculpting tools. You can use water to smooth out the surface like I'm doing here. I made sure the clay was overlapping the cardboard and touching the chair at all points of contact because this is what's going to keep the deer head in place. I used my paper template again here to help me with the placement of the face. I traced the shape by pressing into it with the sculpting tool, leaving a faint imprint of the deer's face on my clay, and this served as a guide when drawing the face. After the face was done, I added lines and detailing to give it a wood-carved look, similar to the original. I repeated this process on the antlers. Once the deer head was complete, I moved on to the ornamental detailing on the sides. I decided to use these filigree cake molds for this. I will link everything I can in the description below. When using epoxy sculpt in a silicone mold, I use water as a mold release. Making sure the inside of the mold is slightly wet helps the clay slide right out without warping. I simply press my clay into the mold, pull it out, and lay it on the chair. When I say epoxy sculpt sticks to almost anything, I mean it. I got a lot of questions about this in the dresser video. There is no glue required and you don't need to use a lot of pressure to stick it down. It kind of just settles into the surface of whatever you lay it on and stays there. Seriously, the bond is incredible. Okay, this next part was actually so much fun. I got this squirrel mold planning to use it for just the face of my squirrels to help speed up my sculpting process. But it only works on one side since the other squirrel is facing in the opposite direction. So I decided to use as many details from the mold as possible while switching the face to the opposite direction. Sounds ridiculous, I know. Let's see how this goes. They're like eyebrows, sisters, not twins. Okay, time to make their bodies. In the original, the squirrels follow the curve of the top of the chair, so I tried to make mine do the same. I used the mold to add some fur texture, and then added some carved wood detailing to the squirrel's body with my sculpting tool. Finished up squirrel number 2, and now we're going to move on to the back of the chair. I started by peeling off the bulk of the cardboard. You could also leave it if you wanted to and just sculpt over, but I opted to peel it off. As I said earlier, in hindsight, I think it would have been easier to sculpt on a solid piece of cardboard and then peel the entire piece off once the clay dried, rather than make the deer-shaped cutout that I did. Let me know though if you try this project out and use that method. Once the bulk of the cardboard was removed, I sculpted the back of the chair to match the front, and then started sculpting what is perhaps my favorite part of the entire piece, the legs. The front chair legs have these amazing hooves, similar to the claw feet you see on a lot of antique furniture, and I just love them. I sculpted the hooves and some fur, then used silicone molds to add some fancy detailing. I actually used the same leaf mold from the dresser for these tiny little leaves. For some reason my camera stopped recording here, so you'll just have to wait for the reveal to see the finished legs. Once all the sculpting was done and the clay was cured, I dry brushed it with this light tan paint called Palomino Pony by Valspar. The key to this technique is to brush a small amount of paint over the surface of the clay so that the nooks and crannies stay brown. After the paint dried, I stained the entire piece, wood and clay, with this Minwax wood finish in the color English Chestnut. The wood stain dries very glossy on the surface of the clay, as you can see here. So as a final step in making the clay match the wood, I dry brushed on this burnt umber colored acrylic paint. It gives the clay the reddish tone that the wood picked up from the stain, as well as mattes the glossy finish. And the final step in this project is reupholstering the cushion. One of the best things about this chair is that the cushion has been covered in vinyl, protecting the foam inside and keeping it in perfect condition. So I didn't need to replace the foam at all, I just replaced the fabric on top. While I removed the old upholstery, let me tell you my plight. I had such a hard time finding the fabric for this. I wanted this specific green faux suede from Joann that I purchased in the past, but it seems like it's been discontinued because I couldn't find it anywhere. I tried ordering 3 different options online and none of them were the right color. So out of sheer desperation, I dug through my fabric scraps and found just enough pieces to patch together. I figured if it looked too crazy, I could just find something else, but it ended up working out. The seams aren't perfect, but they don't bother me because I think the fabric color and texture just work really well for this chair. Alright, I know everyone loves the good before and after, so let's check out this chair at the thrift store one more time. And here's the after. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the transformation. Subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one, and don't forget to check out my Instagram at happyhomemama.diy for the giveaway. Have a great day.